Welcome to the Evangelism Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Andrew Palau, the son of the great evangelist from Argentina, Luis Palau. And so we are sitting in the nation of Malawi. Tonight, the festival begins here in Blantyre. Brother Andrew, thank you for being with me today.
Good to be together, Daniel. Thank you. Thanks for coming, and we get to serve together again. It's amazing, right?
Yeah, so let's start at the beginning. How did you come to Jesus? I know it's a really great story, and it involves coming to a festival.
Mm-hmm. I love festivals. The joke's on me, I always say. I came to the Lord at a Luis Palau festival in Kingston, Jamaica at the age of 27. And I was born and raised in that great Christian home. You said the great evangelist. I'm like, he was great. He is great. He's greater than ever now. 6 months ago, he went to be with the Lord. And the doctors said 3 to 6 months at first, and the Lord gave us 3 great years, so much accomplished, so many great family dynamics advanced. It's just a tremendous blessing. But Dad and Mom, had their third son. That was me, twins, Kevin and Keith, then me, and then my little brother Steve. But, the Bible says all of us like sheep have gone astray. Each one has turned to their own way. So Mom always says, everybody wants to hear your testimony, but I had just as much trouble with Kevin, Keith, and Steve, But my, if we each go our own way, my way was longer away from the Lord, more burdensome, I suppose. Kevin and Keith and Steve came in their time, but I took so much longer, just ran off into the world and all the garbage of the world, alcohol and drugs and all the relationships of that lifestyle. And, had a great relationship with Mom and Dad, because I wasn't an angry, belligerent rebel. I was much more difficult than that. I was just, you just couldn't pin me down. I was happy, nice, I had this facade on the outside, happy and peaceful, but inside there was turmoil and a real selfish self-interest. And they were trying to figure that out. What do we do? 27 years, I wandered away, and they never gave up. And that's how I came to faith. Really, God has chosen to use people who deliver the gospel, who live the life, that example, their love for one another. He says they will know about me, and that they're following me by their love for one another. I saw that in the world around me. Eventually, it impacted me. But Mom and Dad prayed for me, and that's really foundational, right? The power of prayer is so critical in the salvation story of anybody, and I see that so powerfully in my life. They lived the life. That's the second thing they did. They were just faithful, and they weren't perfect, but they were changed, and you could see it. And when everything crumbled around me in that sense, and it became evident, I looked around and where can I go from here? And it's like there's that island of strength of people with peace and in this troubling world, and you gravitate to it, right? It's like the aroma of life to you then, and I moved towards it. So then they shared with me the gospel in so many ways, one-on-one, sending people after me, sending me books, writing me letters. But ultimately, I was living in Boston, 5 years out of university, working my way up the corporate ladder. That sounds better than it really was. But I was out there in Boston working, and they just said, "Son, we're having this festival. It's in Jamaica. Do you want to come?" And I was like, I don't really want to go to the festival, but I do want to go to Jamaica. And when I went out there, the Lord had been orchestrating things in such a way, unbeknownst to me or them, really. I think they just moved in obedience to the Spirit. They had a lot of festivals they didn't invite me to, but when the Spirit prompted them, they were faithful. And they invited me, and I went out there. And long story short, when I heard that gospel message for the 1,000th time, I would suppose, it's just you hear people say this all the time, and maybe some of you have experienced it, where you're in a crowd and it feels like it's just you and God. And I sense that. It's like, I know Dad's preaching. I suspected he was needling me and going for me, but it wasn't really evident by the message. I think he was speaking about the rich young ruler that night. I'm like, I'm not rich, I don't rule anything, this isn't for me, but it was for me. And the Spirit was pushing me, and the hound of heaven, getting me, and I finally relented and just said, God, please, will you forgive me? And of course, He is faithful. Cleansed me in that moment, lifted me up, took the shame and the guilt, healed me of the many addictions, that were harassing me, that I'd brought into my life, and gave me new desires in my heart. And really my calling for the ministry came in that very moment. I'm kind of consolidating a couple moments really, but in that season of repentance, the Lord brought me this calling, which was very simple, which was that he just said, "You'll tell everyone what I've done." I had no idea what that meant, but I was like, of course, what else would I do? Look at what's happening. I didn't realize what he was saying. It came in sort of phases of revealing itself, what a good God we have, huh? And that's how it happened. And my wife was very involved. Her testimony as a Jamaican woman, her family involved in the festival. I saw her testimony and the testimony of her brother having recently come to faith. All these things come together, don't they?
Wow. And then how did you start to grow in your understanding that you had the calling of an evangelist upon your life? Because of course your father was an evangelist, had that strong calling on his life. How did that desire to preach the gospel start to grow in you?
Well, I wanted people to experience what I'd experienced. You experience that radical transformation. For me, some people are really in longer, slower seasons and then they come, but for me it was just that incredible radical transformation and lifting. So it was startling to me and stark, from death to life, from dark to light. And I wanted everyone to experience it. I just thought, I'll do whatever it takes. So I see my dad is Luis Palau. His work is effective, as I've experienced. I want to empower it with any small thing I could do. So I started carrying his bags and learning and growing. I had no intention or idea in my mind at all of being a preaching evangelist. Being up in front of people was like, it was so far outside the realm of my interest or capacity. It was horrifying to think of it. So I was just thinking of, maybe I can serve Dad and become part of the team. I would spend my life for this, whatever it is. But as I began to do that, opportunities would come in the cities. People would think, oh, there's Luis Palau's son. Maybe he'll come to our school, or maybe he'll come to this. And I resisted it so much. I was like, Dad, don't do that to me. I don't want to go up front. And he was like sympathetic, but not really. He would put me in front and say, just tell him what God did. And I remember the first time ever, I was so angry at him. I just couldn't believe he would do it to me. And we were at a school, I think it was in Guatemala, my first international trip with him. And there was a school, and I thought of trying to share my testimony. It was confusing to me even to think, what did God do? I don't know how to describe it. But I did my best, in many tears, bawling. The interpreter couldn't even interpret practically. He probably made his own message up because I was so beside myself. But I think it was, 80 boys came to faith that day, and I think Dad noted it. I just thought, wow, that's crazy. It just goes to show there's power in the gospel, because that was weird. But that was like a moment I always think back to. My friend Dan Owens, who was a great evangelist. Do you remember Dan? You might not have met him. He went to be with the Lord. He was on our staff at that time as a really right-hand man to Dad, an encourager, an evangelist, and he took me under his wing. And right after I got back, he said, Andrew, come with me. He was doing a crusade in a little town called Brookings, Oregon, tiny little coastal town in southern Oregon. And I was so excited. Oh, I get to go with Dan and carry his bags and learn and grow from him. And on the ride in the van down to the coast, he said to me, just like an hour out of town, it's like a 6-hour drive, he said, on Saturday night, you're going to share your testimony, Andrew. And I was like, no, you're insane. I'm not going to do it. I just did it in Guatemala. It was a disaster. I hate it. It's agony. I'm terrible. And he's like, you're doing it. And I was like, okay. I said I would do what, he's my boss. I got to do it. So I did it. Same thing. Tears, almost indecipherable, But I tried. He reminded me of the simple facts. Don't miss the cross. Don't, deliver the gospel, share your story, trust the Lord. Many people came to faith. And, I just had little moments of opportunity along the way. And it became evident. It was many years later. I think it was probably 12 years of serving Dad in directing crusades and directing festivals eventually, that at a point in time, the pressure came. I was like Moses, I suppose I'm pretty sympathetic to Moses, because when he said to God, like, you got the wrong guy. I don't talk so good, it probably was true, right? It's not like he was some massive, eloquent, driven, like from the day he was born, just give me a crowd. He felt what was true in the flesh, in the human side. He probably was terrible, but God didn't care about that. He said, I told you to do it. Are you going to do it? Yes or no? And I remember in this season where I was being moved into the preaching evangelism part, I'm kind of fast forwarding to that. It was agony for about a year. Things were getting tense, and my disobedience to that call began to reveal itself even in relationships and with me and Wendy. And she's like, what is wrong with you? Don't you see? And I was like, you guys are trying to push me. I thought they were operating in the flesh. Like, you guys all just think that just because I'm Luis's son that I'm going to be evangelist. That doesn't even make sense. But it was what God had for me. Finally, I was reading about Moses and in this disturbed season, resisting, and I read that story, and then I got to the part where Zipporah, Moses' wife, realized that it said the Lord was coming to take Moses' life. Like, you look at the text, you think, oh, it looks like God and Moses worked it out, right? But Moses was gonna get it, and it's just this revelation in my mind of like, that's you. And I really felt this genuine sense that like, I'm dead, that the Lord has given me this opportunity and he's coming to take me. I don't know if he would have taken my life or just taken the opportunity from me, whatever it would have been, it was serious. And it was like an immediate, like in the same way my conversion was immediate, I just immediately repented. I'm like, it's like I came to my senses, right? And I was like, oh God, please, I am so sorry. If it's not too late, forgive me, I will do it. I'll do anything you say. I said I would do anything. And now it comes to this and I'm resisting. Please forgive me. And he was so merciful, opened up the opportunities that came from then to be in cities and serve. I love the cities. I love the unity. Since I see how it got me to that place, I see how it can get others to that place. And so I really believe in the model, how it brings unity, furthers unity really, how it provides opportunities for people to, it says, as an evangelist, you're going to be in Ephesians 4, preparing God's people for works of service. So I see how the environment of the festival provides a lot of that. So you're fulfilling that, you're proclaiming the gospel. It's pure joy to me. So, yeah. Long answers, Daniel, sorry.
Your father was very well known throughout Latin America, and then later doing lots of festivals in the United States.
Yes.
But it seems like the door that God has really opened for you over the years has been right here in Africa.
Yeah.
And so right now we're in Malawi. This is actually the second time that we have been in Malawi. In 2016, the Palau team came to Lilongwe, which is the capital of Malawi. Yeah. And at that time, I came and collaborated on one of the satellite festivals.
What was your city?
It was Mazuzu, which is like 3 hours north of Lilongwe.
Right.
And it was me and Keith Cook collaborating.
Lucky.
And it's it's such a privilege to be a part of the global network of evangelists, which is your entire network of evangelists all over the world that you're encouraging and helping, and this idea of collaboration, that working together, that we can accomplish something much greater than if we all work apart.
Right.
And so now we are in Blantyre. This city is named after the birthplace of David Livingstone, the first missionary explorer who came through this part of Africa. And tell me kind of what you have seen in this journey here in Malawi, and kind of what the strategy is, and what you're hoping that God does in this nation.
Yeah, well, God gave me once I relented, I went to another mentor of mine, Tim Robnett, who has really been super involved in all of our evangelist networking and relationships. He's been such a great mentor to us all and discipler. He said to me at that time, I said, look, I'm in, forgive me. I had to ask everyone to forgive me for causing such a upheaval at the team. And he said, that's fine. Ask the Lord for where you should be. And I said, what do you mean? He said, just geographically. And I began to think. Quickly, the Lord gave me this geographic understanding. Like, if you are involved in these areas each year, taking any open door that comes, that will be the fulfillment of what I'm asking you to do. So it was a number of places, and the U.S., Latin America, very obvious. The UK, there was a strange burden to say persist, and a few other places. But Africa wasn't there yet. A year later, so that's how I think, by the way. That's why if we have one festival in each of those places every year, 6 to 8, then I know like we're on track. But Africa came when we adopted our daughter Sadie from Ethiopia. The Lord added it. Because at that time, Dad had never been in Africa. We didn't know anything about Africa, so the Lord didn't put it on my mind. It wasn't a natural kind of supernatural thing. It came later, uniquely supernaturally to Wendy and I. When we were there in Addis Ababa getting Sadie, the Lord just said, add it. And I said, happily, yes, but where do I start? I went back home to Tim Robnett and I said, Tim, you're not going to believe this. God doesn't speak to me like that much, maybe 3 or 4 times that clearly. And to me and Wendy together was like, whoa, what are we going to do? And I said, Tim, what do you think we should do? And it was amazing. He just put his hand on his desk and he had a piece of paper on it. And he said, that's very interesting because here's an invitation for you, not Luis, because everybody invited Luis. And then if he couldn't do it, then they'd invite me and say, okay, But, and it was from, will Andrew Palau come and do a festival in Kigali, Rwanda? And I was just floored. I was like, what do you mean? Where does this come from? I don't know anyone there. But somehow the Lord had orchestrated it just to confirm this thing. And Tim reminded me, I had been doing some things in Poland, Romania, India, with Tim's guidance, like we all have gone with Tim, right? He just has set us all up so beautifully in giving us chances. But he said, don't forget also, last year you were in Cairo, Egypt. And I had done my first African festival already. And long story, I'm sorry, I get excited, but I'll bore you to tears. But so he was like, God said 10 capital cities in 10 years, which was again, very weird, like very precise. I'm like, that sounds like a marketing campaign, Lord. I can't tell anybody that. And it's like, well, then don't tell anybody, but that's your calling. So we had been in Cairo, kind of a confirming, like, again, like Tim was right. Just so you don't think it's your bright idea, he had already begun to do it. Cairo was one, Kigali. Now we went through the 10 capital cities, and from there, he's given us freedom to then expand to non-capital cities as well. So now I feel like we'll push to, when I'm dying, I will have an African festival on the books, I suppose. That would be my dream. And that's why Africa became such a passion for us. But in the beginning also, I thought, I don't ever want to go to the cities alone. I want to go with a team. Dad set the example. He gave us all these opportunities. And so in this festival here, like this week, there's a ton of us, spread out across the city. I have my part, but man, we've seen far more people come to faith in the schools that I haven't even had the privilege of going to the schools yet. It's been all Malawian evangelists in there. 12,000 people have come to faith already before the festival starts. Most of them, I think, in those schools. You went to the schools. You and Wesley went to the schools.
Yeah, and I came actually
and
10
the
days
partner
early,
cities, yeah.
And we did events in Balaka and Lucenza and another city, and just saw tremendous results. I think Desmond Henry has added up all the numbers. We had total attendance over 60,000 people.
Yeah.
So before even the big festival comes here to Blantyre, there's already been a tremendous harvest of what God is doing here.
Yeah, and your festivals that you guys did have collaboration. My festivals have a massive collaboration. Yours has a massive collaboration, and the whole thing is a massive collaboration. So that's kind of my vision, is like, to whatever degree we can just empower people in their gifts and introduce networks to each other, then you really are building a strong momentum for the future that we've been invited back. I know you guys have been invited back to Malawi because of the alliances. Over 1,000 churches participating in Blantyre, over 1,000 churches participating in your cities that you went to. It's really beautiful, and we're excited that there's great days ahead for us together. And all of you, you're in it.
Yeah, so if you're an evangelist, I'd encourage you to go to evangelism.global, and that's the website for the global network of evangelists. And you can find out more about how you can be a part, how you can join the GNE, and how you can participate in helping to reach the world.
Yeah, thanks for bringing us together, Daniel. It's great.
Thank you for being on the Evangelism Podcast.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I love it. Keep going. Tune in.
Daniel King is on a mission to save 1 million souls a year, but he can't do it alone. Would you consider sowing a financial seed today? To give, please visit www.kingministries.com.